we're authentically going to jump into how it is that you can truly activate your content. And that's through the whole process of creation to conversion. So we always want to drive people to action, right? And in this talk with Judy Shapiro and my business partner, Janine Moss, will really provide a lot of insight there. We are joined by Judy, whom we have worked with for many years now, I would say over 10 years. And we have worked with Judy on some really incredible projects and clients, including Booz Allen, NDS Cognitive Labs, Griffin Gaming Partners, just an, Omnicom. You've probably heard of that little company. So we've been really fortunate to work with Judy. Judy's work in marketing technology and advertising technology is truly transformational. As a CMO for an outsourced CMOs for over 25 years, her work has transformed what we're doing, and it's wonderfully confirming, and you can truly take action on it. So I'm not going to go a lot further there, but I'm really excited to be in conversation with you today, Judy. Janine and I are. And just a little bit about Outfront Solutions. Our next slide.
Okay, before we get there, I just want to say one thing about Judy. What's really beautiful about Judy and what she's going to bring to you today, she's not a technologist at heart. She doesn't love technology the most of everything. She is a marketer, and it pains her in her soul to spend money that doesn't do anything. And that's the driving force behind this. I'm going to let her tell you more about that later. Let's move on, but just know that you're coming from a supreme marketer here.
Yeah, that is true.
Thank you. That is true.
Yeah. Judy has been absolutely 1,000% on the front lines of big, marketing tasks and strategies, and her technologies are born out of these really stepping forward in a bold way to want to change things, and we're just loving working with this tech. You guys can all feel my conviction and passion here, because it's literally been a game changer for Janine and I and Outfront Solutions, which is what this slide is touching on. So Outfront Solutions, our firm, is a branding, marketing, and business development firm. And what you see on this slide is our ikigai, which is a Japanese term that means reason for being and having meaning. And in the concentric circles, you see all that we do. This is really authentic to all that we do at our firm. And we're working with clients from some of those mentioned earlier, but the enterprise companies from Accenture to Omnicom to middle market companies and well-funded startups, and quite a few venture capital firms at this juncture. And one of the things that's really exciting is that we're always focused on purpose and results. So results with purpose and purpose with results, right? And that's what comes together in the concentric circles, and we'll touch on that today. But we're really bringing a lot forward to our client base, and now more and more so with Judy every day.
So today, we're going to start just by telling you a couple of stories about how we've used Judy's technology, so you can kind of get grounded in how to think about it, because technology is complicated. She simplified it, but it's complicated. So we're going to start with the examples. She's going to jump right in, talk to you about what the state of of content marketing is today, why it's not working, why we're all struggling with it the way we are. She's going to talk about what happens when you do it right, because right now we're guessing, putting things out there, hoping that it'll bring people into our funnel. But what happens if we actually knew what we could expect from the content that we're creating? So that's really awesome. That's why we're so, oops, sorry about that. Before we get there, let me just finish by saying she's going to show you and talk to you about how the platform works. And then we're going to do questions. Oops, sorry, going the wrong way. Pardon me and my fingers. So we're going to start. So we just want you to let you know a few ways we used it. So just yesterday, for example, when Judy and Nicole and I got the results of Judy's platform, turning out topics for a venture capital firm. Now, why did we do that, right? There's a website. We've done some of the earliest websites known to humankind. So we've been doing this for a long time. So why did we need Judy's technology to tell us anything? Well, first of all, the venture capital space is super complicated. There's lots of different people doing different things. And the question is like, what's important? Is it important what your successes is? Is it important how you invest? Is it important the portfolio companies, the types of entrepreneurs? How should we even architect the site so that Google will see it well, so that when people are searching for it, they're going to find it really well, right? And so those are the questions that we go into Judy's technologies with. And you know, it was really cool. So it spits out, a lot of times, Nicole and I are really thrilled with ourselves sometimes, because we will pretty much know, we'll say, okay, here's what we think. But then we use Judy's technology. Not only does it tell us whether we're right about what we think, but it then also reveals some certain things that we didn't know, right? There's always an aha moment. And so in this particular case, there was the aha moment was that no, it wasn't as much the developers, the people creating the games and you know, even the types of games. Yes, that's important because people talk about it. But the real key was, and especially in the context of a venture capital group, it was the business behind making these incredible products. You know, that was where the big aha was. Sorry, my screen is doing something bizarre.
Well, it looks fine, Janine. And just to put, everything looks fine. And just to put a pin in the use of Judy's technology and topic intelligence for this venture capital firm's website, we went into using and looking at the topics to not only confirm what's the content that should be on the website, but also what are other topics that we should be using in other ways on different channels for this firm. Exactly. So what are the topics that need to be used for social media? What are the topics that need to be used for PR on the blog, you know, which are different than what you want to have on the homepage? So this is why we're so excited about topic intelligence, because after 25 years of, yes, Janine and I have had these processes and methodologies that we've applied to so many companies, we can then confirm it with technology and AI that tells us, hey, were you right? And are real people doing this?
That's the key. So we use it for architecture. We now know how to architect the site in terms of the hierarchy of information that we put forward. And now we also used it fairly recently with a technology company. And that, you know, technology companies, especially these folks, do development, and they can develop a wide range of products. So the question is like, what's the umbrella that goes over it? And what are the key topics that we need to move out on, because the most people are going to be responding to them, as Nicole was pointing out. So, and in that particular case, we also learned, you know, is it what you do? Is it why you do it? Is it how you do it? What is the most important way to think about it? And in the case of the technology company, the most important thing, the thing that everyone wanted to know and they were all searching for, and there wasn't enough content really about, which was the how. You know, how do you implement and making it easy to implement, getting it done, That's the big challenge out there in technology land. Nicole, do you want to add anything to that story?
No,
Okay.
no, just excited about showing all this.
And these are kind of, they're not in order, but brand strategy, right? That's the very beginning of everything. And so we really love to use topic intelligence on brand strategy, which is at the very highest level. How are we going to put ourselves out into the world as in our positioning, right? And so we use this for this major holding company, and talk about noisy. I don't think we have any clients that aren't extremely in very hotly contested categories. And there's a ton of information out there, especially in that particular category, because you're talking about all kinds of advertising agencies, PR agencies, and consultancies, all different kinds of data that's out there. So brand strategy, one of the unique factors of topic intelligence that we haven't mentioned is it picked up the emotional state of people out in the world, the emotions that were swirling around in this category. We actually did it pretty early in COVID-19. And so if you remember, the whole communications industry got disrupted. I mean, nobody knew what to say, how to say it, when to say it, so that's why it was super important that we used topic intelligence. And what we found out was something that we had identified in a smaller way, or as one of the identified things, which was everything was an emotional turmoil. But what we were surprised about was how massive that turmoil was, and the implications of the turmoil, which we learned through the topics that people were exploring. So that was an amazing experience that enabled us to give personality to our brand strategy. So I don't want to say any more before we go in, unless Nicole, you have anything to add?
No, let's jump in.
And let Judy tell you what this is, how it works, and now you'll see how we've used it.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm so grateful because this was approached from a marketer's perspective, not a technologist. And the task was very straightforward. Content marketing has always been a superpower of marketers, but it's become more and more difficult to actually execute with quality as technology disrupted all of marketing. So if we go to the next slide, I'll really begin to explain why we're here, right? I think if we think back, we all can pinpoint different technology and innovation in digital marketing, whether it's tracking data or programmatic buying, or many of the distribution networks. And yet it seems to have bypassed content marketing. Now, the key here is that content marketing is seen as a human activity. Writers have to write, which is true, and it's still true. Then you got to figure out how to get it out there. So it was a very human-centric activity without any thoughtful approach of how to approach it technologically. And that's, in fact, exactly what we did. Because as it is, content marketing just didn't have any outcome focused. It was throw a lot of content against the wall, let's see what sticks. It lacked a programmatic media that can scale. If you create a great white paper, it's really challenging to know where to put the white paper. Do I try and get it in magazines? Do I pitch the individual reporters? Very difficult to actually get it out once it's been created. Next is, how do you measure content relative to ROI? Again, excruciatingly difficult without a team of engineers, tracking a million different things and trying to put it together. Very difficult. And finally, content marketing was a lot of steps that were disjointed. You had the creation piece, and that was, shall we say, self-contained. Then you had the distribution, maybe you had SEO, PPC. Those were all siloed. So we all understand that when you have that level of functional fragmentation, it's just less efficient. It's just less transparent, and it just doesn't work as well. So none of that was being operative in content marketing today, which led us on the next slide to really call it out and say there is what we call an adaptation gap. Content marketing just had no adaptation capabilities because it was so underpowered from a technology point of view. and the consequences for marketers was significant. You ended up with an individual, we call her Judy Shapiro, not named after me, by the way, but a regular consumer is getting a tsunami of content. She doesn't know what to trust. She doesn't know if she even opted in for it. So it overwhelms her, but it actually undermines outcomes for brands because they're just getting lost in the shuffle. The idea of personalized user experiences, I think we can all attest to the challenges of that. And too often they're not really personalized. They're more just bombardment without any contextual. And finally, the operational chaos for marketers is haunting marketers to this day. And it's really cobbling their ability to activate outcomes. So when we think of an outcome, we think everything from sales to a brand to engagement, whatever the outcome is, it's got to drive to a consequential outcome. And for content marketing, that's really what we focused on. So if I'm going to ask a question to everybody. I don't know how many here were doing content marketing or marketing in 2012, but the question is, has it changed in 10 years? And the answer is, in my opinion, it has not. It's what you did 10 years ago is the same as what you do today. And whereas social media has become more tech powered, digital media has become more tech powered, influencer management to a level has become more noisy, but content marketing was kind of, left in the back of the bus. So let's focus exactly on what's misfiring, right? So let's really make it specific. A, data. Content marketing data is, in my opinion, MIA. There's no data that helps a brand understand what topics are important to them. They can do attitude studies, they could do sentiment studies, they could look at the website and which pages are getting, read, or maybe time spent on page. But to understand data that really informs how content marketing planning happens, that's where there is a real gap. Just like you would have data when it comes to digital media. You can buy data so that you know who you're targeting. So there's not really a lot of data that tells you what you should be focused on. So there's a lot of guessing. Should we write about this? I don't know. I mean, it's well-intentioned, but it's a lot of guessing. And here's where it really got to me as a marketer, because I was in this position more than once. You'd spend $250,000 on a program. And you are nervous every minute of the day because you don't know if that was a good bet. So you have no data to guide whether or not you should be making investments before you've made them. That was unacceptable to us. So too much guessing, too little predictive information to understand what's worth your time. Let's talk about tech. For all the analytics platforms that are out there, it is crazy difficult to really carve out the content marketing role in that. Crazy difficult. And it shouldn't be. So there's no good analytics that really carves out how content works to drive outcomes. And frankly, there are too few tools, and this is what we look to step in and fill, but too few tools that help marketers operationalize content marketing and deploy it. There are tools that help in, teams to develop content, shared resources. There's certainly tools like Outbrain that supposedly, distribute content. But at an integrated, holistic level, there's just nothing that allows a marketer to start at the beginning, execute a campaign, analyze it, and move on, or what we call the typical rinse and repeat. Next, the relevancy gap. We've all experienced it. There is a lot of content coming at Judy Shapiro from many fragmented channels. And typically the way they talk about relevancy is what we call interest classifications, which are very broad. So an interest classification might be parenting, but that's not really relevant if you're, let's say, a grandmother, right? Because there's no separate topic called grandmother, as I am. So there's a lot of content pushing, but it's not really relevant to me. And it's even worse, it's not really contextual to me as a human. If it is even being driven contextually, it's more that an algorithm has decided what I want. So there's a real disconnect between the human side of content, the person that's actually consuming it and engaging with it, and the mechanisms, the tools and the technologies that actually get that content in front of them in a relevant way. And then finally, we touched on this, the analytics gap. The analytics gap is very important because analytics is hard anyway. Let's not kid ourselves. As a group, I think we can all nod our heads in the same direction, say analytics is hard. But if you're trying to understand how content to drive traffic, that becomes even more difficult. So we wanted to solve all those problems. I'm not going to stop for questions because I assume if somebody has a question, they'll just jump right in. This is
we'll
our
take them at the end as well.
Exactly. This is our mantra. This is what we aspire to enable our marketing partners to do, which is what does content marketing done right really look like at the highest level, at the macro? What are we trying to accomplish? A, you get permission to engage. The user has, read your white paper or downloaded your game or whatever. You have permission to engage. It's not that you're just pushing an ad in front of them. They are participating in that relationship. And it also then gives you permission to create a relationship. Too often you get to a landing page and it says, without any information much other than the headline of the white paper, give us your information. That's offensive. That's not permission for a relationship. You're trying to goad me into giving you my precious information. The permission part is key. Users opt in. Users want to participate. It's not just a mechanical, I get an ad in front of your eyes. I'm going to spend a little time on this slide because I hope you walk away, if nothing else, from this conversation, a shift in your thinking by 90 degrees. The typical way to think about it is that customer conversion means a customer has to go through a journey, right? They get exposed to an ad, then maybe they see another ad, then maybe they see something in social, and then maybe they're driven to your site. So you think of that as a customer journey. Let's try and begin to think about it instead of trying to get at a who, but make it a topic journey. Because getting to a customer doesn't actually make it easier. It makes it much harder for marketers. You have data issues, you have privacy issues, you have fake issues, meaning, you bought a media buy, how much is real and how much is fake. So if you try and map a customer journey to conversion, right, it's so much more complicated than simply beginning to understand that a user journey to conversion is really a topic journey to conversion. And once you think topic journey to conversion, it simplifies much of how you have to think about it. Because now what you have to do is architect your assets, your site to that topic journey. People will naturally participate. That's where that previous slide of permission to engage, permission to create a relationship. Once you hit them with the topics that are satisfying, it becomes a much different relationship with the brand. And this is a typical topic journey. The person has curiosity. So curiosity to us is a topic, is an example of a topic. And we have to give them content that satisfies that curiosity itch. Moving on to interest. Now they're more interested. We want more in-depth information, maybe reviews, a different kind of content spin. They might actually get depressed because now they realize this is more confusing than I thought. Damn, I have to spend more time. So you give them content that's simple, maybe an email of a template. Here's the simple checklist you need to do A, B, C, D, F, G. They'll probably hit the bottom when they hit frustration, which is, damn it, I can't find the content I need to help me move forward. You solve that with a type of content that kind of gets them into the next step. They are both in decision paralysis and analysis. They're kind of like, but I have to. So what will help me do that? And then if we do this topic journey correctly and you've hit them with the right content, finalizing with the benefits, there's that unexpected delight. And that's when you have converted a customer, not just to buy your product, but to be a brand loyal advocate.
I want to put a pin on this in something that Judy always says that I always quote, which is that she always says that the internet was not created to serve people, it was created to serve information, right? So going on that, back to her customer journey, if you're going out to look for Janine, you're not going to find her. It's going to be expensive and hard to get to a human being, and there's a huge amount of waste there. But when you're dealing with topics along your customer journey, they're self-selecting, they're finding you. It's much more of a pull strategy. So I just want to say the internet much more aligned with topics as an enormous platform than it is with trying to find a human being.
Thank
Right?
you. Well said.
Okay.
Well said.
Okay.
Yeah, and these topics across these different channels are like these little tasty morsels, right? That bring you in, and they bring you in on your own terms, and and you're engaging in a way that's exponentially more human, right? Than things being tried, crammed down your throat in different mediums, and as we've seen in the chat, maybe they're truly not relevant to you anymore.
Yeah, yeah. As an enormous byproduct advantage is because our platform never tracks anybody, there are no privacy issues. So we're not trying to say file number 111 started here and ended up there, because now you have a whole privacy. Just focus on the topics, get them out in the right channels, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then it'll, if the topics are specific enough, that's what's been missing, this contextual engine. Typically, if you want to target by topics, you have very broad topics. They're called interest classifications, which you can use in media, business, family, hobbies. It does break down a little bit more than that, but it's really misfires when it comes to most brands. Most brands don't fit neatly into a category, the way Google and some of the bigger buying engines have organized it. But if you get precise topics with the right contextual engine to understand what it means in human terms, then you've got a match between content and where it's going to be placed in advertising. All right, we've teased you enough. Let's look at the actual platform.
Shall we keep going?
Yeah, let's jump right into it. I won't read this at length, only because you can certainly see it later. But at the heart of it, it was meant to be a holistic, integrated platform to drive intelligent acquisition. Branding is a good example of you need branding to drive to intelligent acquisition. So what are the content assets that are needed? What are the content tools? What's the data? And at the end of the day, it's understanding where your investment should go before you spend and understanding what happened after you've spent. And that needs to be a very tight, closed-knit, intelligent loop, which is what we've done. If we go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about this, because the real benefit to organizations is a content marketing engine is a corporate asset, because it is repeatable, sustainable, and predictable. So it transforms content marketing from this, gosh, I hope all of that works, and some of it will, to it's an engine. You turn the key, the motor turns on, here's how it works. And there are 4 elements to this engine. Every bit of it was developed by our organization. There's the data, it's called topic intelligence data. There's content planning, which we have special tools for. We have execution, including our own ad network, so we can get to that level of genuine contextuality, not a keyword match or an interest classification. But if you're talking about Linux security, you got to get your content on a page about Linux security. It's just that simple. And the final is content optimization and analytics. What happens? So let's go to the next slide and I'll give you examples. I won't go through all of it, but I will begin to highlight some key points. So the data is really a new class of predictive data. It just doesn't exist. And it's a data that really reveals intent, because it shows you from high to low, what are the topics and the keywords within them. Keywords are useful. Not that they're not useful, but here are the topics that drive your company. And even if you had 2 companies in the same space, their data will look quite different. It will look quite different. So it's not like we do it once for a category and then it's just rinse and repeat. Every single client is done for its own topic intelligence data, and it is proprietary to them. The content planning, integrated content planning that cuts across channels, organic and paid. Very important. Typically, those are separated. And so you have organic here and you have paid social media there, or digital media, or whatever it is, integrating that at a topic level. So when you're negotiating and you're figuring out costs, you can get better pricing, because you're not going after a big category, you're going after the 500 pages they have on the topics you care about. So it's a very different buying model. Things like for content planning on-site discovery agent. Imagine if Google and Alexa had a baby. It's a conversational way to find content. You know, if you do search, it's you put something in the search bar, you don't get what you think you want, but you can have a conversation, say, hey, I saw an article here a year ago talking roughly about this, you know, show me what you got. And then within that very dynamic, people can find the content they want. Landing page optimization, one of my personal passions. It's the most, one of the most fun things I do, which is how to make sure landing pages work to generate results. It's often relegated to a platform or a low-level junior person, and they suck too often. Not okay. A landing page is a content asset in our world. Moving on to execution. One of our biggest areas of success is what we call intelligent SEM, which integrates PPC and SEO. Today, those are siloed, and the only one that makes more money with that is Google. Brands do not benefit from that, and I could go into a whole another session of just how to do SEM better so that you make money, not Google. Another area within execution is what we call an authority site, a very dynamic way to have a Google recognized place where you're recognized as being authority on a particular topic. So that works incredibly well for advocacy. It works incredibly well for strategy. And then finally, analytics. This is probably the part I'm most proud of, but it's analytics so that you can map the topic journey to conversion. It's just that straightforward. What does a user have to see for them to go from, I landed on your site, to I'm going to buy something, or I'm going to participate and download your white paper, or whatever that is. It obviously includes attribution and your normal analytics, but it's really taking it to the next level. So all of this is within this engine. Many brands use some of it. Many brands use all of it. For instance, some brands just use our AI generated content, which is very different than what people think of because it's using the topic intelligence data. So you're feeding the machine the topics we already know will perform well. And then it's creating content. Obviously, real editors still edit. It doesn't replace human people. It makes them much, much more powerful to do what they do to really drive business.
And may I add, Judy, that we've really leveraged the technology at all these different points, right, with different clients. And so, you know, informing our branding, as we mentioned at the beginning of this talk, the topic intelligence data is informing branding through, but also imagine how strongly this informs your entire go-to-market strategy.
Which is exactly on the next slide. So let's
tee up.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. Thank you for that. That was so smooth. If the first takeaway from this session is think topic journeys, not customer journeys. The second is that the topic data lives throughout the organization. It's not just in the analytics team or the modeling team, but the way we've developed it is that every single person of the organization can access it. It's not a per seat license. Anybody in the organization can access the data. It informs from the beginning, your strategy, your planning, your development, how you do PR, thought, leadership, events, even email and social gets coordinated. And we have a calendaring function, which I'll just show you a quick screenshot of it later. But it's data that is alive. It's data that informs the organization. This data is updated regularly depending on the categories. Some categories, like B2B, many of them are very slow moving. You don't need to do it more than once a quarter. In other cases, you need to do it every week. But whatever it is, the data is alive, and it's able to really enrich how people in the individual functions are able to actually add a level of outcome orientation to every single thing that they do. I think the next slide shows just a quick view of, there we go. I'm actually going to start with the topic data, and probably the most important thing is, and these are the topics for this particular brand, It's this TI score, topic intelligence score. And this is really what begins to help prioritize your resource allocation, how you want to think about what's important. Topics that are higher up on the topic intelligence score might be worthy of a position on the nav bar, as an example. So many brands use the topic intelligence score for everything from understanding how to create their nav bar on a new website, to their content calendar, to their social calendar. So TI score is really how you prioritize from top to bottom. If it's on the TI score page, it's important to that brand. But clearly you can have 40 topics. This gives you a way to understand what's important and what's important right now. The next area is what topics are related. Really important, because that's how you get to that level of human relationship, human relevancy. So let's say you have a topic of what, I can't read what this one says, but video production or video streaming. What's that related to? Is it related to entertainment? Now you could write more content. You could create more ads. Even PPC is informed by this. So when you're doing the PPC ad, you have your macro, but you see it's also tied to these other things. So you try different alternate versions of PPC ads. The next box, which you can see, which just has these bars, which isn't very interesting, but it is when you see it in the platform. And I'm happy to go there at any point at the end. This has 3 views of the data: search volume, impression volume, which tells you where your competitors are spending money, as well as real people. How many humans can you convert to your product and service based on that topic? It just doesn't exist in the regular impression-based world, but for those of us interested in outcomes, which has been my 30 years worth of work, you can't figure out outcomes if you can't figure out humans that are seeing it. And third lesson, an impression does not necessarily mean a human. An impression could be a human, an impression could be the same human, an impression can be a bot. And if you were to ask me, Judy, so you're an experience, we have our own buying platform. What % of impressions are real versus fake? I cannot answer that question well. It's easily 70% is fake right off the bat. In some cases, depending on the ad network, it could be as high as 80% fake. It's a tragedy of the industry. So impressions do not equal people. And that's what we solve here, which is, I don't care about how many impressions from a conversion point of view. I care about how many people. And the fourth littlest square, which is the one, again, I'm awfully proud of, it's a topic calendar broken up by channels, because we have this performance data that says these topics are best, say, in email and SEO. These topics are best suited for a white paper and digital advertising. Because what pains me is when I see people take a topic and put a lot of digital media behind it. And when you actually look at the data, like 20 people are interested in that topic. So you're spending a lot of money for not a lot of value. That's in the platform. Let's move on.
Going to in a sec, but I just want to say this about what Judy said, which is that that when she was saying 70% of your digital advertising, programmatic advertising budget can be wasted, I didn't know that a couple of years ago when Judy first said it. But take a look, go and Google the programmatic advertising, and you'll learn about all the different cuts of your money that are going off to platforms and different technologies. And to what she said about the impressions, you never know. Did Judy just have it on her screen? She never looked at it. Was Judy a bot? So there's enormous waste, which is why we have to content market. That's why we've been doing the content marketing.
Exactly right. Exactly. That's a great point. Well, it's a great point. Content marketing is authentic and it's real. As opposed to digital advertising, because there's no permission based, you're just being pushed ads. Overall, it's engineered to drive outcomes by integrating technology, planning. There's a human element to this. I don't want anyone to think that everything is platformatized. That's inappropriate, right? So there is technology, a heavy dose of technology, which is within our contextual engine that we apply to everything from content creation to content syndication. There's a planning and execution, meaning all the way through to analytics. But at the end of the day, topics reveal intent better than demographic targeting. Topics provide better brand safe placement. Again, if you're chasing a person around the internet, real or not, you're going where they're going, and they may not be going places you want your ads showing. Let's just say it that way. So this really alleviates the entire brand safe ad placement, because if we're placing media that's just particularly contextually relevant, I'm just chasing pages around the internet. I'm not chasing people. See what I'm saying? And then finally, topic data. It's actually cheaper not to worry about buying all this extra data to try and target people in digital media. It's very expensive to do. Put aside the it eliminates all of that cost, that hassle, that risk. It just eliminates it. If you move to a content-centric tech model, then all of those issues go away. They just are not relevant. And I think